Her smile shines as bright as the stars at night. Her heart is as kind as can be. She has the patience of a saint, but if you push her, oh Lordy. A straight talker is Smiley. She's the salt of the earth. Make no mistake, she matters. Catch Smiley's story on a live stream. Oh boy, that girl can add her. Go Smiley. She's Smiley, alright. She's Smiley. Make no mistake why she's here. She's Smiley, alright. She's Smiley. If you're guilty, she'll smell out your fear. Missing posters and stories of heartache and fear. She tells us all of the heartbreaking tears. She can sniff out the guilty from a mile away. If Smiley's on the case, then she's here to stay. She cares about these missing children. She cares deeply about them all. She speaks the truth with integrity. For the truth, she will seek it all. She's Smiley, alright. She's Smiley. Make no mistake why she's here. She's Smiley, alright. She's Smiley. If you're guilty, she'll smell out your fear. Smiley's questions are like a heat-seeking missile. She's going straight for the bullseye. Don't ever believe you can fool her. She's too wise, man, she won't comply. She values freedom like the 4th of July. She values respect even more. If you want to earn a place at Smiley's table, watch the clock, it takes time for sure. She's Smiley, alright. She's Smiley. Make no mistake why she's here. She's Smiley, alright. She's Smiley. If you're guilty, she'll smell out your fear. If you break her trust, you're done for. Trust don't grow back like grass. So don't give Smiley a reason to doubt you, or that friendship will shatter like glass. She's a damn good woman, that much we know. She puts in the hours to bring them kids home. If your child is missing, you want Smiley on the case. She is always willing and she gives so much grace. She's a Smiley, alright. She's a Smiley. Make no mistake why she's here. She's Smiley, alright. She's Smiley. If you're guilty, she'll smell out your fear.
Hello, let's go. Hello, everybody. It's August 14th, Thursday night, 2025. Great to see you here. Hey, H. Davis, number one. Hello there. Hello, Janice. Hello, beautiful. Not crazy by crazy lady. Hello. That's right. Thank you all for being here. Let's keep it classy tonight. There you go. Millie, hello. Good to see you, Millie. Let's see who we got. Millie. Oh, my goodness, Millie. Thank you, Millie. Woo! Thank you, Millie. Love you, Millie. Love you. Robin N. Thank you. Hey, Robin. Good to see you, Robin. Leslie, keep it real. Hello. And Terry. Hello, hello. Welcome in. Welcome in. Woohoo. Who else we got here? Let's see. Let me see here what we got going on. There we go. Let's see. Ooh. Smiley can't see tonight. Bugs Aunt, hello. Hello there. Welcome in. Everybody, welcome. Miss Leslie, keep it real. Let's see. Good to see everybody. Thank you all for being here. I think I'm down at the bottom now. I believe I am. I am. I think I am. I think I can. Good to see everybody. So what's everybody been up to today? Anything exciting? Anything going on exciting in your life? I hope you're doing good, Bugs Aunt. I really do. Oh, I'm doing good here. I wanted to come on here tonight and tell y'all they had a secret court date for the Devil's Den Freakazoid is what I call him. I should be nicer. I should be a lot nicer. But they did, and I wanted to come on here and talk about it a minute. And if y'all are real good, then I'll come back on here again after this. And I'll give y'all a couple lives tonight. How about that? It's just us. We don't care. I don't even know what's going on out there. I just got my coffee, grabbed it, come in here, and said, let's go. Let's go, Flows. If y'all ready, we could go for it. We'll go for it. So let's see. Let's see what we got here. Well, in Washington County today, they had a secret court meeting here, or whatever you want to call it today. And it was totally private. That's never good, in my opinion. Secrets are not good. We already know that. But why none of the public in Arkansas was allowed in, I don't know. Neither does the news people. They don't know either. Everyone was shocked. Everybody was shocked. There was a court order. That judge even put a court order, which was kind of strange. Let's see what we got. Hey, Bren. Hello. You're in Washington County, but have no idea what's going on. Oh, my gosh. Okay, so I'm fixing to tell you, and I'm fixing to show a video as well. So they brought him in today, but it was just for a plea, his formal plea, which is expected. And, they did that. But here's the thing. It's not a shocker. He pleaded not guilty, okay? And that's not a shocker, because you'd have to be in well, not that he's in his right mind anyway, but you'd have to be absolutely way out there. I don't even know how to put it in a case like this, to go in any court, even in traffic court, and just say, hey, I'm guilty, on your first time. But he pleaded not guilty. So that's not really what everybody's shocked about. Everybody was shocked because there was a court order, and then they had the window blacked out with some type of a black paper or something. So the media or public or nobody could even see in there. I thought that was a little bit strange. And they had notes on the door. No, not open to the media, not open to the public. So that was kind of strange, don't y'all think? I think especially, and Bren may correct me if I'm wrong, but I think especially in Arkansas. So that's just what's got everybody up in arms. But But there was this court order, and they brought him in, note on the door, blacked out the windows, and it was actually prohibited from all media and all the public. They wouldn't allow anybody in. So the only people that was allowed in was the defense attorney, the prosecutor. Hey, Miss Grace, good to see you, honey. Miss Grace, and let's see what Bugs is saying here. Hold on. There you go. Many prayers to you. Many prayers. Many prayers. Absolutely. But they said, whoop, my eyes are not working again tonight. Oh, I didn't have said eyes. Jesus. But anyway, but they said that nobody was allowed in. So that was a little bit strange. And when it was the prosecutor, the defense attorney, and the judge, those were the only people that was allowed in. That was the only people. When they came out, nobody had anything to say. I think they were asked like the next court date, and of course they didn't know, which again, that's not highly unusual, but all this is just a little bit strange. Now, we all know, or most of us know, if we've been looking at the streets today or the news or anything like that, that Andrew pled not guilty. That's it. I mean, now, I don't know. Some people saying, well, it might be because of minors. It might be, but it never stopped them before in a public court of law. I'm just saying. Just remember, some people are confused, okay? And let's set this straight. Some people are confused because he did admit to everything. He did admit to everything, but in court, he had to formally plead. He either had to plead guilty, not guilty, or no contest. I guess they got no contest there. I'm sure they do, which is pretty much the same thing as guilty without saying guilty. But that usually comes later on with plea deals. But anyway, now he was expected, I'm sure, from everybody, at least in the legal system, to plead not guilty today, first of all. But that is different than him confessing, okay? I want y'all to understand. It does not mean he didn't do it. It doesn't mean he's taking his confession back. It does not mean any of those things. It just means he was doing a formal plea. Also, it's like I said, it's very rare anyone guilty or not confessed or pled guilty at the very, first court appearance like that. Most of the world would have been surprised if he had pled guilty, honestly. The defendants typically, they want to review their evidence, the discovery. They want to discuss their plea offers, if in this case there is any, because I only see one way to go on that, and that is to take the death penalty off the table. But I don't know. Who am I? It hadn't even got started yet, right? Hey, Cinderella and everybody coming in. I don't know, y'all. Something I think is wrong with my computer. I think it's just too bright for my eyes. I've tried to turn it down, but anyway, ignore me. I'm okay. So if I don't see you or I missed you, I didn't do it on purpose. Just let's say that. I'm just saying. But so, and it gives the attorneys time to discuss everything, and it gives the prosecutors time to explore if they're going to even strategize about giving a plea deal. Woo, Janice, thank you. Thank you so much, Janice. So that's 2. Thank you. Whoop, whoop. Let's see if we can meet our goal, and then I will come back on after this for a little lighter one. Whoop, whoop, whoop. We're on our way. We're on our way. So, again, that's, I don't know if it was the only thing that everybody I think is up in arms in is that why the court order though? Why did the judge get the court order? And why did they black out the windows and stuff? That's what was so strange, So I just feel like everybody's up in arms about that. And I think it's, that the media wasn't even allowed in. But the media guy said he's going to find out about that. He definitely is going to find out. Also, this is going to be a long trial. I just want to tell y'all, or a long time to trial, a long process. Because this right here is not going to be overnight. First off, it's not even a normal crime. None of these crimes are normal. Hey, Susan. Hello, hello. But you want to give them time to prepare everything. You do. But see, here's the thing. Y'all got to remember. They're looking at him in 2 other states. I don't know if all my people know that. I don't even know if all my mods know that. Now, they're not only looking at him for the woman, I believe her name's Honoree Flannery. I don't want to say it wrong. But they're looking at him for a man in Wisconsin, too, that was at kind of like the same thing. It was called Devil's Lake or Devil's something. Don't y'all find that a little bit strange? What I say from day one, I thought. It don't make it true. It don't make it real, but it will make things real complicated. If that's the case. Yeah, two different ones. Another guy and then a lady. One of them was a dean. Actually, JLR went to the one in Vermont. One is in Vermont. That's the Honoree. Her name is Honoree. I want to say her last name is Flannery. I'll have to look at that. But she was a dean. JLR went up there on that case when it was happening. But with her, this didn't have anything to do with Devil's Den. He didn't know about that until after. But he showed us the trail and everything. And I went back and watched that the other day. And actually, I think I shared it. And if anybody's got that link in here or don't mind getting it from JLR, I don't mind if you drop it, because that was a long haunted trail. The only problem with that one is she had a pew-pew to her, I believe. But now this other guy, it was called Devil's Lake or something, and it's in Wisconsin. And all this is just coming out. And they're looking into it. They're looking into both of them. Bren said, I need to attend the court hearings when they start. Absolutely. That would be, yeah, absolutely. Thank you. Yeah, if y'all will look at this, because I had to go back and look at it the other day. This is where JLR talks about the Flannery. The Honoree. I might be getting her name wrong, the last name. I know her first name is Honoree. I'm so sorry. But she was a dean, and he was up there on that case, and he walked that trail, and it's a long, scary looking trail. What'd I say about him before? He likes to go to all them scary places. I'm sorry. I'm sorry, he does. Oh, gosh. But this is going to be a long process. It's not going to be overnight, especially because they are looking at him. Hey, Denise. Hello, hello. Good to see you. But first off, if you want to call a case normal, in a normal case, prosecutors usually need time to make and finalize a plea deal. Again, I don't even know in this, will they give him a plea deal? And if they do, it would have to be probably just to take the death penalty off, because they swear they're going to give him the death penalty. And they're not going to offer that right away. Not in my opinion. I don't care how many times he goes to court. Wait, what? Wait, what? Hey, hope you're doing good. But the other two unalivings are in different states. We don't even know what they're going to do or how they're going to handle that. Or if they would have, maybe they would have to transfer him there before Arkansas could even start their case. I didn't think about that, but sometimes they do that too. If they find out for a fact he's involved in any of those other two states, they might go with whoever's first, honestly, and do that trial first. So it could be years, honestly. I hope not. I hope not for the Brinks. I hope not for the Brinks children. You know, he's done confessed to this, not formally in court, but he has confessed to it. And I just hope that he does not, and the state and nobody puts these kids through no more than they've already been through. And this is a serious charge. It's a death penalty case. It's not just plead guilty or not because you littered somewhere or you run a stop sign or you beat the shit out of somebody. You know, it's a serious case. And unfortunately, you can say it fortunately or unfortunately, he, like everyone else, believe it or not, has to be given that right for due process. Just like you, just like me. I mean, everybody has to be given that due process. And again, because this is a death penalty case, he'll get a fair trial. I think he will get a fair trial. I think he will get one. That's my opinion. Even if the evidence seems overwhelming or the crime is serious, I don't think they can just rush somebody into a guilty plea. Not without making sure that the judge has to make sure that they understand the charges, that they know the rights. They know all the rights to the trial. They have the right to remain silent. They have a right to legal counsel just like anybody else, whether they have money or they don't. And if they don't, then an attorney will be appointed to them. You know, they have to make sure there's no threats to him or that he didn't do that on his own. Yeah, it has to be due process, not a legal rush. And also in this case, they have to cross all their T's and dot all their I's because they don't want nobody like this walking. If he's guilty, and I'm sure he is. That's just me and my public opinion. Okay? I can have my public opinion. I'm just telling y'all what the judges do and what the courtrooms do. And they'll give him due process. They don't want a conviction overturned. That's the main thing. And even Miss Grace, if she's still in here, she can attest to that. She worked for the court system for years and years and years. They don't want something to come back and bite them. And especially now, since it's been put out there that he could be involved in other crimes. Eventually, you know, people don't just, what did I say? People don't just wake up and say, I'm going to go to the park and do this today. But eventually, you do get caught. You do get caught. So I don't think this is his first rodeo. Oh, yeah, I agree, Janice. I think he is guilty. I think he's an evil freak, a monster. That's what I call him. I heard on somewhere about a week ago when this first happened, I don't know who they is, didn't like it because he was being called all kinds of monsters and all kinds of names, and his little feels was getting hurt. And I don't know if they means who in Arkansas, but they don't like that. Okay. And I don't care, and I'm sure half of these people don't care, and I'm sure the Brinks surely don't care. I'm just saying. I think he's an evil freak. I think he's a monster. I think he's cruel, cold, and calculated. And I got chills from him from day one, and I don't think this is his first time doing this. I think he probably started out with animals, and he moved on and didn't get caught. And I think he did this, and there was just too many witnesses, and he got caught. That's my own personal opinion, and I'm allowed to have that. But they'll tell him if he don't have an attorney, they'll appoint one to him. That would be a public defender. He can get his own private attorney, but on his school salary, I don't think he'll be able to do that. That's just my opinion. Again, I don't know. He may have a rich aunt or uncle who will help him. I don't know. But at the first appearance, he's already been. The judge asked, if he has an attorney, and they'll say, he'll say yes or no if he can or cannot afford one, and then they'll appoint him one. And guess who pays for that? We do, the taxpayers. Well, I don't because I don't live there, but the taxpayers there does. Brian, you do. Just saying. That attorney's job is to protect that defendant, that freakazoid, in my opinion, to the best of their knowledge. And I could not be a defense attorney, but I'm just saying they have to give everybody the same and do everything that they can, but he'll get appointed a defense attorney. But I'm telling you now, I even feel sorry for the person who gets appointed to be his defender. I really do. But I know they'll do their job because it won't be about the money, but I know even they have to have a heart what happened to the Brinks. And I don't think there's not one happy camper up there in Arkansas what happened. They'll just grit their teeth, they'll bear it, and they'll go on. But this is just another part of the case. I just want y'all to be aware. I can't tell you the exact next date that he will go to court because, again, this was a surprise, as I like to always say. But usually what happens after this, then they'll bring him back in, and then they'll set, like, for pre-trials and stuff like that, arraignments and all that kind of stuff, whatever they call it there. I'm sure it's arraignments, the same thing. The courts usually schedule, the pre-trial conference and hearing. That helps the lawyers get the case together and all the preparations, discuss everything, get the discovery in, because that's going to take some time to get all the discovery information in. And in this case, though, his attorney, whoever, it doesn't matter if it's a private attorney or a public defender, whichever one, will try to get him, the plea deal, of course. But they can ask for, how you have a speedy trial? Well, they have speedy trial in Arkansas because I made sure of that. But the defense attorney might actually ask to slow it down a little bit just to have more time to figure things out. This is not going to be a cut and dry case. I am out of the loop with a lot of these cases. So many. I know there's so many of them, Miss Grace. I am in Missouri, but lots of family all over Arkansas. Oh, back in the day, he would have been done in our. Yes. Yeah, I get you. Absolutely. In felony cases, there will be a preliminary hearing, and he may be, they may set the pretrial then. I don't know. But in Arkansas, they do have the speedy trial. They do have those deadlines, and that is the constitutional right under the Sixth Amendment, and that just allows them a speedy trial. And they must bring, what that means is there in Arkansas, it's different everywhere, but in Arkansas, that means they must bring the trial to case within 12 months if the defendant is in jail. Okay? If the defendant is in jail. Now, if they're not in jail, more than likely they would do it within 6 to 9 months. But since he's in jail, I don't foresee him getting out of jail. That I just don't. Yeah, Miss Grace, it is overwhelming. It's just way too many. Too many and too sad, honey. Too sad. But I'm telling you right now, that clock starts ticking. Tick tock, tick tock. And something we can't do. What does Smiley always tell y'all? We cannot turn back time. That clock is ticking for him. Sure is. It sure is. So keep in mind that Sixth Amendment, it is there as well. Unless if the defense requests time, then that clock can be stopped and excluded. That time can be taken away from, and it does not count as a delay because the defense attorney asked for that. Just saying. So they may need more time on their end for whatever case they're going to come up on. Hey, Little Red and VA. Hello, hello. I don't know. But in my opinion, and y'all tell me if I'm wrong, but I think he will get a fair trial and a fair jury. I do. I believe they're going to sequester them. I think they're going to do everything they can. Probably since the judge did that with no media in there, it might be a while before they even allow the media in. Unless there's some kind of law broken or something. I don't foresee that, but I don't know. They're really up in arms about it. But yes, even in this high profile case, who knows? I mean, but I still think that they'll get a fair trial, even if they have to move it, but the potential jurors are going to be questioned. They're going to be questioned of their knowledge, the case, the opinions, their biases, if they tell the truth, hopefully nobody will screw this up for the Brinks. Nobody will screw it up for them children. Hopefully everybody will be as honest as they can on this case right here. Because I'm pretty sure everybody's seen and heard about this case. But I do think that there are good people out there that can be good jurors, be honest, and be fair. Both the prosecution and the defense, they'll get to make choices on both sides. They'll get to go through, even though it may be a challenge to them, and they'll get to choose and they'll get to dismiss as well a certain number of people. So they kind of will hand pick them, And again, if they have issues, the court can move it. I don't foresee that happening in Arkansas. That's just me. It could. I could totally be wrong. And in extreme cases, again, the jurors can be sequestered. But what I want to do now is I want to show y'all some of this. And let's see what they're saying about it. Let me get my banner up for our friends, Law and Crime. and a little bit of music. Let me turn it because I know it's loud. Okay, so there's that. And let's see what they have to say. Yeah, I don't think they will, Miss Grace. And I think it would have to be a very good reason why they do. And I don't think they will.
The number one food for regular beef.
The Devil's Den State Park double murder suspect is saying in court he didn't do it. Andrew McGahn entered his plea in an Arkansas courtroom today.
Today was the day that the charges were read to him and he pled not guilty. This is where the hard part begins and the long walk begins to get this case to justice.
Prosecutors in Arkansas say they have a strong case against the now former elementary school teacher who they say is the man who stabbed and killed a mom and a dad who he didn't know, who were just out for a weekend hike with their young daughters in a state they had just moved to. An alleged random killing.
You guys are representing McGahn. Are you able to talk to us briefly? Any comments? What happened to Sunday?
McGahn's attorneys were silent. They didn't even acknowledge the media outside the courtroom today, asking them for comment. What this case could look like going forward. What McGahn's court case could look like now that it appears he is going to try to fight these charges. We're on the case presented by Law and Crime. I'm Chris Stewart.
Don't mix pink salt with lemon and 2 other ingredients if you don't want to donate your entire wardrobe in less than a week. Don't believe me?
Here we go.
A defendant pleading guilty in one of their first court appearances almost never happens, even if that defendant is facing the type of evidence that prosecutors in Arkansas say they have on him. That defendant is Andrew James McGahn. And I'll have how prosecutors responded to his not guilty plea that he entered in a courtroom today in Northwest Arkansas. This is an image of McGahn from his first court appearance a couple of weeks ago. Today, cameras were not allowed to shoot him as he appeared with a public defender by his side for the first time. McGahn is being held without bond in a jail in Washington County, Arkansas, in the northwest part of the state, about 2 hours from Tulsa, Oklahoma. This is video of when he was first booked into the jail in Washington County after his arrest in Springdale, Arkansas, back on July 30th. Prosecutors believe they have a strong case against McGahn. They said when police interviewed him, he confessed to at least some extent to these double murders, but they haven't gone more into detail about specifically what McGahn said during that interview. Since McGahn's arrest, law enforcement from states far away are looking into whether he has any connection to cases that have gone unsolved, cold cases that detectives now say they're exchanging notes with detectives in Arkansas about. I'll get more into that in just a moment. In Arkansas, McGahn is accused of killing Kristen and Clinton Brink. Family members and also law enforcement say this couple died heroes, allegedly at the hands of Andrew James McGahn. The family had just moved to Arkansas from South Dakota. Clinton, the dad, was going to start his new job as a milk delivery driver the following Monday had he not been killed during a hike with his family in this park. Police say this is a picture of McGahn dressed in black, wearing fingerless gloves, armed with a knife in Devil's Den State Park 5 days before his arrest. Police say that McGahn first attacked the dad, Clinton, and in that moment, Kristen rushed her children to safety, saving their lives. This couple was hiking with their 7 and 9-year-old daughters. Those girls were able to get to a visitor station. They were able to call authorities about the attack. They also were able to get police key information so they could put a description together of what this attacker looked like. After their mom got them to safety, though, she returned to try and help her husband, and that is when she lost her life. Witnesses allegedly saw McGahn run from the park. There was blood on his face, they say, and he got into a 4-door black sedan. That was later determined to be a Kia, and he zoomed off. This triggered a 5-day manhunt in Arkansas. And Devil's Den State Park, by the way, is still closed to this day because of what happened on the day the Brinks were killed. 5 days after their deaths, though, police tracked McGahn specifically through that Kia that he was driving to a barbershop a half hour north of Devil's Den State Park in Springdale, Arkansas. Now, this is video from the barbershop that was put out to the media of McGahn actually sitting in the chair getting a haircut. You can see that he has a lot of hair over his face. The barber said that she believes that he was trying to keep his face covered. He asked her not to cut anything off the top of his head. He also wouldn't give his name when he first showed up. About 4 minutes into that haircut is when detectives walked in the door. Now, we spoke to people at the barbershop, and they said that they heard that detectives asked McGahn if the car in the parking lot outside was his, and he said yes. Here's video of McGahn walking into the barbershop, and you can see that dark car there does match the description of the vehicle that police put out when he was on the run. Here is what the barber who was cutting his hair said about McGahn when she spoke to News Nation.
As I was examining his hair, his scalp looked very dry and matted.
Interesting. Did he seem surprised that the cops were there for him, or because we've now heard the police have said that he has admitted to it, that he said, yes, I did this. Did he seem surprised when they got there?
So I believe it was a detective. I don't remember his name. He came in, asked, whose car that was. And, he had his head down the whole time. And he really didn't, say anything until they're like, I believe it's your car.
Now you can see McGahn here in his first booking photo appears to have a haircut that wasn't finished. But certainly what sticks out to us is just the look on his face. It is one that we found to be incredibly menacing. And that made it even more shocking.
See, in my opinion, it's a good thing. Yeah, I think it's a good thing that barbershop wasn't full. And I'm glad he didn't have a pew-pew, and I'm glad it didn't go worse. Because it very well could have. It very well could have went a whole different direction, but they got him without incident. And I mean, he was caught. I was just sitting here thinking, when they asked him, was that his car? I mean, he could have said no, but really, there was nobody else really in there, right? But I was just thinking when you said that, not crazy. What if it would have went in a whole different direction there that day? Wow. Sorry, y'all.
When we started to learn more about his background.
So what I'll say is he just recently moved here and had gotten a job to work at a local school here.
McGahn might have been getting a haircut to get ready for the school year, which was set to start the week after his arrest, and he had just been hired to teach elementary school children in Springdale, Arkansas. Here's a now deleted post of McGahn being welcomed by the school where he was going to be working. The school district in Springdale told us that McGahn never had contact with kids or families because he was just hired and the school year hadn't begun yet. But we did go down a path of trying to piece together Andrew McGahn's background. And it turns out that he had been hired by at least 5 different school districts just in the last 3 years. At one of them in Plano, Texas, he was only there for 4 days and had just been hired before the school year, but he left to go teach in Oklahoma. But those 5 school districts we counted, there was the one in Arkansas, there were 2 in Oklahoma, both near Tulsa, and then there were 2 near Dallas. In 3 of those schools, he left with the same excuse, which was he was resigning to then take another job out of state, except for one school. It was at this school in Flower Branch, Texas. This is a now deleted 2022 Facebook post that was welcoming Mr. McGahn to teach 4th grade. In the post, he talked about how excited he was to teach kids that year. Now, it was at this elementary school that parents are now telling us that they thought McGahn, frankly, was a creep. One parent called him standoffish, and on Facebook, she said that he would reportedly treat the girls differently than the boys at school. There's a dad that even told the New York Post that McGahn allegedly put an elementary-age girl on his lap and asked her to be his girlfriend.
He put a little girl on his lap and asked her to be his girlfriend. I also have reported on this, but he also would bring the little girls Sonic and all kinds of candy and stuff like that and groom them. And why he was allowed to have a free and clear record and not at least be checked into and just put off like trash on another school and other people is beyond me. I don't get that. Yeah, Terry, this picture right here is like something out of a freaking Hollywood movie or something. It like a 10 times worse than A Nightmare on Elm Street. I'm like, what? But yeah, he did that. And he would tell them little girls, you know, I wish you was my girlfriend. What? Huh.
The school district said it did do an internal investigation into McGann, and they found that he was not inappropriate, but he did show favoritism. He was allowed to resign and did not return to that school the next year. One thing that has stood out to us since we started covering this story and piecing together Andrew James McGann's background is just how much of a mystery his background appears to be and how often he moved around. You might remember police actually called him James Andrew McGann at first, and then about 24 hours later, updated his name to Andrew James McGann. I put his name into truthfinder.com and nothing came up. And that says something because Truthfinder rarely can't find information on
That's
people.
the scary
At
part.
Law and Crime, we partner with Truthfinder and we use it to get details on the people who are involved in our stories. But hey, even if you don't work in true crime, it can be a great tool to help you get some peace of mind. It's one of the largest public records search services in the United States. And with the paid subscription service, you get access to unlimited reports about almost anyone. And right now, you can get 50% off your first month of confidential background reports. Just go to truthfinder.com/OTC. McGann does not have much of a digital footprint, which for us raises a red flag because we often see a lot of people post on social media and have a life online, even when they're accused of crimes like McGann is. We did find, though, McGann's Facebook, which appears he hasn't touched maybe since college. Here he is as a high schooler in a southwestern suburb of Chicago where he grew up. Now, we know he left Illinois after high school, and a childhood friend who we talked to told us that McGann's mom was from Oklahoma, which may explain why he went to Oklahoma and that part of the country. That friend also told us that McGann grew up in a blue-collar neighborhood southwest of Chicago. This was a neighborhood that was home to a lot of union families, and surprisingly to us, a lot of police officers. He seemed to have a regular childhood, though. He played Little League Baseball, had a good family, we were told. His dad actually coached the baseball team. But then at some point after high school, McGann cut off a lot of the people he was close to, and it's still unclear why.
All right, so listen up. State Farm was trying to charge me $197 for car insurance. No, thank you. I got
what I know, people that were really close to him, they all lost contact with him. Like, I don't know what happened, honestly, but they said, yeah, he ended up blocking me or something. And that's what I've heard. So
that friend also said that McGann had a notorious issue with anger, and he also struggled with girls. Now, even though McGann said he graduated college from Oklahoma State, his Facebook lists a college in Illinois, which means he may have hung around the Midwest for some time after high school. I bring that up because a 2020 cold case out of Wisconsin, which is just a couple hours drive from Chicago, is now being looked at for having a possibility that McGann was involved. I want to be clear, though, at this point, detectives tell us all of this is preliminary. They're just exchanging notes, and it's unclear whether Andrew James McGann had a connection to the case I'm about to talk about in Wisconsin. I did talk to a detective, though, at the Sauk County Sheriff's Office there. It's near Madison, and he talked about the unsolved murder of John Schmutzer. John was 24 years old when he was stabbed to death inside Devil's Lake State Park on October 14th, 2020. Devil's Lake State Park is the busiest state park in Wisconsin, and it is a hot spot in the fall, specifically in October, because a lot of people travel from out of state to go see the leaves change. Police say at 11:38 in the morning, someone killed Schmutzer on a trail called the Grottos Trail. It was on the south side of Devil's Lake State Park. Detectives say there were no pictures of a suspect, but multiple people saw someone who is considered the person of interest to this day in this unsolved murder, and that person of interest has been dubbed the Runner because they were seen frantically running through the park. Police say they don't have any pictures of the Runner, but they do have a description. A 5'10" white man who was wearing all dark clothing and was seen running frantically through the park at the time of Schmutzer's murder in October 2020. Detectives do not have the murder weapon in that case. Now, this isn't the only cold case that law enforcement has at least called police in Arkansas to see if there is any connection to Andrew James McGann. Vermont State Police reached out about the October 3rd, 2023 murder of 77-year-old Honore Fleming. She was a former college dean who entered a hiking trail in Castleton, Vermont around 4 o'clock in the afternoon. She was found dead at 4:30. She had a gunshot wound to her head. That case is still unsolved. This is the sketch that Vermont State Police put out almost 2 years ago. They also put out a description from witnesses, and they say the person of interest was described as a male, standing about 5'10", having short red hair, and he was wearing a dark gray t-shirt and carrying a black backpack. Again,
this would be what, 10, 11 years ago? So as far as that photo, do you think they look alike? I think, honestly, this one looks more like him than the one now does, but that's just me. Maybe it's because he has on a hat. I don't know. Hey, Cinderella. So if you think this looks like the other sketch or him or anything else, put a 1 in there. Some people don't think so. I think so. If you don't think so, put a 2. But that was, this is like the first sketch. It's not Devil's Den here in Arkansas. This was the other one, Janice. Yeah. I mean, to me, they look pretty similar, at least. And I know sketches are not 100% or anything like that, but wow. I was just like, wow. So, yeah, it'll show. I'm sure it'll show the other one.
And in this case, it is unclear whether Andrew James McGann has any connection to it. Police say there are no known links at this point, and to our understanding, based on the research we've done, McGann doesn't have any ties to New England.
Okay. You guys are representing McGann. Are you able to talk to us briefly? Any comments? What happened to Sunday?
McGann's public defenders refused to even acknowledge the media outside of the hearing today. The public wasn't let into the hearing, neither was the media. A judge put in a motion to deny that. The lead prosecutor in the case did give a brief statement. He also said he's expecting a gag order moving forward. Here's part of what he said.
I anticipate a number of status hearings in this case. The next thing that'll happen, you'll see on the docket, it's set as a status hearing. That'll be a chance for the lawyers in the court to convene and figure out where we were at in the proceedings.
It's a gag order.
They won't be talking about it. And the long walk begins to get this case to justice.
And a lot of people don't realize it could take some time to actually, for justice or trial.
This case will take longer than folks anticipate.
Did you expect him to plead not guilty?
Absolutely.
Did he have any choice other than to plead not guilty?
I don't know of a defense attorney in the United States that would allow a defendant in any felony, especially this felony, to allow their client to appear and plead guilty. The defendant has a right to a fair trial, and part of having a fair trial is seeing all of the discovery, seeing the case against him, and that's what's going to happen in the next days, weeks, and months.
Joining us now is a board-certified criminal defense attorney and a former homicide prosecutor, Josh Tomchek. Thank you, sir, for taking the time to be with us here on Law and Crime. Today, Andrew McGann pled not guilty in court. I think a lot of people, knowing that prosecutors have said that they have a potential confession, DNA, the murder weapon, and yet here is a suspect pleading not guilty. Why would he plead not guilty if there's so many things that he's facing, according to prosecutors?
Well, we have to remember that this is an initial court appearance where it's his first time in court. Almost always an individual is going to plead guilty. The only exception to that is if, for instance, someone's been a suspect in a case for a period of time, they may work out a pre-indictment or a pre-charge resolution where they show up with the idea that they're going to plead to that charging document. In all other cases, especially ones where they're seeking serious punishment, such as in a capital case, a defendant's going to plead not guilty at his first court appearance.
And this is a case where prosecutors have they have not ruled out the death penalty, and they've kind of hinted that that's the direction they're going to go. What goes into making the decision? I mean, clearly this was a brutal crime that they're accusing him of, but what actually goes into the decision if you're a prosecutor of whether you're going to go for the death penalty in this case?
It really depends on the jurisdiction and where that charge is brought. There are, I think, 27 of our 50 states still have the death penalty on the books as of 2025. In those jurisdictions, all of them will have their statutory aggravating circumstances, things that make those crimes eligible for the death penalty. Contrary to what a lot of people think, not every homicide is eligible for the death penalty. There has to be an aggravating circumstance, such as a previous conviction for a crime of violence, if the crime involves a minor under a certain age, or as in this case where you have 2 dead people. Anytime you have more than one person killed in a homicidal incident, that is almost always in all jurisdictions going to lead to a capital offense for which the state can seek the death penalty if they choose. The other big factor is whether or not they think they can prove it. It is less common in a close call case, one where the state thinks they may have difficulty proving the charge of first-degree murder, for them to seek death penalty as a punishment. But in circumstances where the evidence is strong, where you have a confession, where there's forensic evidence tying the person to the scene, where there's eyewitnesses, and where there's clear evidence of those aggravating circumstances, then in that case like that, a prosecutor is likely to file the death penalty.
And then how does that factor into how the case is tried? And I know that it does vary from state to state, where in Florida you'll have a conviction and then it's like a whole other process begins of the penalty phase.
And I think it's City Block.
Typically, if it is a death penalty case, does that change how the regular trial would be playing out and just determining whether he's guilty of the crime?
50 milliliters of lemon juice, 1 tablespoon of pink salt, 1 tablespoon of baking soda, and some ice cubes, right?
Yeah, it does. And in most jurisdictions where you have the potential of the death penalty, we have to do what we call death qualifying a jury. So in my home state of Nevada, our trials are in a capital case are broken into those 2 separate processes. The first, what we call the presentation of evidence, the trial phase. We used to call it the guilt phase. In that process, the state's trying to prove the charge of first-degree murder, because if they don't, that individual is not eligible for the death penalty. If in fact they prove that the person is guilty of the crime of first-degree murder in a capital case, we would move essentially immediately into a second trial that we refer to as the penalty phase, where they're presenting the evidence of those aggravating circumstances I mentioned a moment ago, as well as the defense will then present mitigating circumstances, the things that they say should cause the jury not to want to inflict the punishment of capital punishment, the death penalty. So that process is it's kind of clunky, it's disjointed, it takes place over a longer period of time. But in order to set the stage for that, you have to death qualify the jury. So you have to have jurors that will consider all forms of punishment. They'll have to consider the death penalty. Doesn't mean they'll always impose it. In fact, if they say they would always impose the death penalty, they're not going to be eligible to serve on that jury. You need people that can consider the full range of punishment up to and including the ultimate punishment.
Andrew McGann is going to be represented by a court-appointed attorney. On one side, again, I mean, the state feels like they have a very strong case against him, that they got the guy who did this. If you're a defense attorney, what's the strategy here in defending Andrew McGann against some pretty strong pieces of evidence that prosecutors say that they have?
Yeah, I mean, the quick answer is it depends. Cases are fact specific, and what you're trying to do in defending someone in those circumstances, and understand, I've represented dozens of people that are facing capital punishment. Every case is different, and what you're trying to do in every case is different. In some circumstances, it isn't a question about who done it. The evidence, for instance, in a crime that's on video, we'll know who committed the crime. The question then becomes why, what level of homicide is it, and what the punishment should be, what the appropriate solution is for this crime that's happened. In some circumstances, we're fighting from the inception of the case to try to avoid a conviction because that evidence isn't there, or at least there's an articulable argument that it's not. In other cases, we're literally just trying to save someone's life, where the evidence is overwhelming of first-degree murder, but we don't think that the circumstances are such that that punishment should be imposed. In defending someone like that, our job is always to get them the best result possible within our ethical constraints. So I don't know enough about Mr. McGann's case to know what his potential defenses to the crime are or what his potential mitigation is related to a sentence, but I'm sure that the attorneys that are representing him will do everything in their power and within their ethical restrictions to make sure he gets the best defense possible.
How does a public defender, and if in Andrew McGann's case, he has said he doesn't have the money, he was a school teacher, to hire an attorney, how does the defense differ compared to whether he was, I think of Sean Combs' defense team, very different case, but he has this all-star lineup of defense attorneys compared to some of these suspects, these defendants who get the court-appointed attorney. When it comes to resources, how are they different?
That depends on a case-specific basis and a jurisdictional basis as well. So, the practical reality is, unlike what a lot of the public thinks, public defenders are lawyers. There are very, very, very good lawyers who are public defenders who have chosen that as a career path. The difficulty, and what I always talk to clients about, is when you get a public defender, you often don't get to choose who your lawyer is. You might get a very good lawyer for free and a lawyer who's working very hard in your case. You might get a lawyer who doesn't give the same effort or doesn't care as much. You don't get to choose. You are entitled to effective representation, and there's a standard for what that is. When you hire your own lawyer, you get to pick who that person is. And presumably, if you have the means to do it, you'll hire someone who you know, because you can look at their resume, their track record, their pedigree, and determine, is that the right person for me? When we represent individuals who are indigent, oftentimes, and especially in a capital case, there are resources available for the retention of experts, investigators, people to fully develop the claim. Because when the state is seeking the ultimate punishment, our United States Supreme Court has said repeatedly that those cases are different and the standards are very heightened there. So those people deserve adequate representation, and that involves all of those other individuals involved in a case, not just the lawyers.
And that kind of leads to my next question, because I think in some cases you'll see, like Bryan Kohberger, for example, that went on for 2 years, and his defense tried to exclude a lot of the evidence, and there was a ton of evidence against him that he was the one who did those murders in Idaho. And then you'll see cases, it just seems like the murder case is wrapped up very quickly in a matter of months. Why is there that difference between what could be a very long process compared to some that just seem to go very quickly?
Yeah, I think perhaps the cases that go quicker are ones where you're not seeing a notice of intent to seek the death penalty, where they're not seeking capital.
Somebody else said that today, Rachel. I'm sorry, not crazy.
The state is seeking that punishment. You will almost always have a very long lead into that because there's so much investigation that has to be done, both in terms of defending the charge, filing those motions to suppress, raising self-defense, whatever the case may be in that fact-specific scenario. But you also have to look at all of the mitigation that is available to use on behalf of your client. So it can be things like multi-generational abuse, or the fact that they suffered significant head trauma as a child, or it can be that they were exposed to violence at a young age. That involves the collection of evidence, records such as school records, medical treatment records, any interaction with state systems. It involves interviewing a lot of individuals, basically everyone that you can get in touch with. They could have something to share about the individual who's being accused of this horrific crime for which the state is seeking the worst punishment. So that process takes a long time. In other cases where there isn't going to be that penalty phase, and you're arguing, for instance, this is a self-defense or it isn't, that case may get to trial a lot sooner, because there isn't that much research that needs to be done into those categories. But I think for a murder case, for it to take years to get to verdict, especially in a capital case, isn't at all unusual. And in fact, it's quite necessary.
And I know, I'm sure you've throughout your career, you get this question whenever we do a live show on Law and Crime. It's a question that always comes in from the audience, which is just emotionally, as a criminal defense attorney, when it comes to defending someone, and it's even someone in the case of Andrew James McGahn, where you look at all the evidence that's against him, that he committed this terrible crime. Emotionally for you, what is it like as a criminal defense attorney having to argue on behalf of someone like that?
What makes Zaxby's giant chicken finger quesadilla so giant? Crispy fingers, sauce, and melty cheese.
A lot of what we do is removing the emotion from things and making sure that the process is determined not based on sympathy and not based on emotion. In fact, jurors are instructed to do precisely that, to remove those aspects of things. It is a very emotionally heavy process for everyone, for the investigators, certainly for the victims and their families, for the attorneys representing the state or municipality that are presenting this evidence, and they have to show difficult photographs and deal with uncomfortable subjects. As a defense attorney, my job is to fight on behalf of individuals behind the Constitution that our whole criminal justice system is built upon. So my job is to give someone the best representation possible. It's very emotional from a lot of different angles, not just for me, but for everybody else in that process. But a lot of what we do is kind of sterilizing and compartmentalizing to what is the evidence, what does it mean, and then ultimately trying to answer the question, what should be done about it.
Andrew McGahn is also being, or at least detectives in other states have reached out. We know of at least two, Wisconsin and Vermont, because they have cold cases that are open, and it's more just exchanging notes at this point of seeing whether or not he would be involved in another crime than beyond the one that happened in Arkansas. If he were, and he hasn't been, but if he was to be charged with a cold case that happened in another state, how would that potentially impact how the case plays out in Arkansas?
It could a lot of different ways, depending on what that factual information is. So one of the safety systems that we have in place in the criminal justice system is we're not allowed to present evidence in one case of something that happened in another case for fear that we'll convict someone in the first case based on what we know happened in the other case. However, there are exceptions to that. There are ways that evidence can become relevant and admissible to show things like motive, lack of mistake, intent, common plan or scheme. Almost every jurisdiction has some type of other bad act evidence statute that potentially could allow that to come in. I think it's unlikely here, but certainly the presumption is when you're investigating a serious homicide case, the best investigators in that jurisdiction are going to be the ones doing the investigation. And if they're doing their job, they're certainly going to reach out to that individual's past. It would be relatively uncommon to see a crime, if we believe the allegations as they have been levied, and we've seen them in the media and in the charging document itself in this case, that an individual like that this is his first violent contact with someone. That's unusual. It does happen, but presumably they would want to go down, where's this guy been before? What caused him to get into this position? And is there, in fact, some unsolved crime out there that fits the same criteria as this crime? So I expect investigators to look like that. How it ultimately shakes out or impacts his prosecution in the state of Arkansas, too early to tell.
And lastly, and you look at Andrew McGahn's mugshot, and he has this menacing, evil look on his face, and it has been across social media, television since his arrest. How does this jury be impartial when they have likely seen that mugshot and have heard a lot of the information about what he is accused of in a trial that's received so much publicity, a case that's received so much publicity?
Yeah, I mean, that falls within the responsibilities of the court and counsel at the time they come into the trial process. They need to flush out whether or not people have seen that mugshot, how it's impacted them, whether or not they can be fair, whether it raises any bias or impartiality. One of the things that we want to inquire of potential jurors is have they reviewed any or seen any media coverage of a case? Sometimes that can be very impactful. People like that probably shouldn't be on this jury. There's other juries where they can serve their civic duty that don't involve a case that they've read about or seen and developed a feeling one way or another. That mugshot, I don't think it's unusual to see a mugshot where someone looks very angry or distressed, or as you put it, menacing, people typically don't do their hair and makeup and smile for mugshots. I would agree that that mugshot could potentially be a prejudicial thing. And although the way he appeared at the time he was taken into custody may potentially be relevant, if I'm representing him, I'm trying to keep that mugshot out of evidence. I don't want the jurors to see it because I don't want them to develop that ill feeling towards my client based on that one piece of evidence.
And we'll see how this case plays out. Very much at the beginning stages, but a not guilty plea entered today. Josh Tomczyk, great to have you on Law and Crime. Thanks for being with us.
My pleasure. Have a wonderful day.
Now that Andrew McGahn has entered this not guilty plea, he is not expected to be back in court until November. That will do it for On the Case, presented by Law and Crime. Subscribe to us on YouTube and Spotify. I'm Chris Stewart. We'll see you next time.
Oh, y'all can't even hear me. I'm sitting here talking. I was just making sure that wasn't the same video. I double put them up there. But yeah, those are the same two videos. So he says about November. He says he'll be back in court about November, but I don't know because right now, I think maybe the next time he goes, if not before that, you probably will see a gag order. I don't know. I don't know why all the secrecy today and all that. I know the cameraman was not too happy about that, but I can understand them not wanting to mess it up. I can understand all that. This is a lot. In my opinion, it's a lot. You know, I just hope they don't get all the way to the end and make a plea like they did Kohberger right at the very end. I hope they stick to whatever they're going to do, at least in this case. I mean, until they find out what's going on at other places and stuff like that. I just, you know, I can understand the little girls, them not wanting them to go through stuff, but they can record them. They don't have to put them through that. They don't even have to take them to the courtroom and all that stuff. So I hope they don't pull one of those things like that, in my opinion. But I think he'll get what he's going to get coming to him. And that's just my opinion. But I thank you all for being here and coming in here tonight. What do we want to do? Do we want to come back on here in a bit, or what do we want to do? Yay? Nay? I got a couple of things I can come on here and do. I could talk about this haunted hospital in Texas. I could talk about that. Or I can talk about a real, you'll be here, good gypsy, good. I think it would be kind of fun if we talk about this haunted hospital. Actually, I got a couple of sad things to do, but gosh, we do so many sad things. Them sad things will be there tomorrow. Oh, I don't know. My mods have probably got a headache from all this sad stuff. So, you know, give me about 40 minutes, something like that. And I'll come back on here and we'll do a little nightcap. Hey, I'll give y'all something to be scared in your dreams. I know you'll be asleep, Miss Grace. You get your excuse. You get your excuse now, honey. And you know I love you. Good night. I'll see you tomorrow, Little Red. Hey, B in Florida. Hello. So I'll be back over here in about 30 minutes or so. I'll try not to take all night, okay? I try not to be like some. I don't, you know what? I got up about 3 o'clock this morning. I don't know if it's because I come back from my trip yet or not. And I got up about 3 o'clock this morning, and then I was so tired I couldn't stay up. I fell asleep a couple hours. So now I got my days or my hours all mixed up again. That's all I'm trying to say. And so now I'm not ready to go to bed. I'm ready to stay up and give you all another live if you want it. If not, come back and watch it on the replay, honey. It'll still be here. I ain't going to take it down. It'll be on the replay. I'll see you. Good night, Miss Ann. And I'll see y'all tomorrow. I love you. Thank you for being here, though. I appreciate you. And I'll be back here shortly. Bye.